Hi, I'm Kim, the Abundant Traveler. It is crazy to think that I have been to more than 50 countries. When I first started traveling, I thought, let's go to London, let's go to Paris. What more can one ask for? But now, as I'm going to tell you a little bit about my favorite countries, my 3 favorite countries that I have visited are actually non-westernized countries, off the beaten path, places that people don't typically go to. So I'm going to take a walk down memory lane and share with you my top 3 countries that I visited. My first country that is in my top 3 is Botswana. Botswana is in Southern Africa, and I went there on a trip when I visited Zambia, South Africa, and Botswana. Even though Botswana is landlocked, the most famous place to visit is the Okavango Delta. The delta is miles and miles and miles of swampland. What I was after was the Big 5. What is crazy is the 3 days that I spent in the Delta, I stayed in a tent camp, not a fancy tent camp, but a 2-person pup tent, pitch your own tent, build a fire in the middle to keep the animals out. We would actually have our head torches on it in the evening, and you could look around outside the tent circle and see all of the eyes watching us. Again, this was not a fancy trip. This was not a glamping Africa trip. We also had to do things like digging our own toilets. And the craziest thing about that is you had to go to the bathroom with a friend. They would not allow you to go into the woods to our makeshift toilet by yourself because you might get taken by a rhino or an elephant or a lion. So what my girlfriend and I would do, we would go use the facilities, we would come back out, and we would pretend we were Charlie's Angels and we had saved the day. The biggest highlight of being in the Delta was the fact that we did all of our safaris on foot. We were single file, walking one behind the other, and our guides actually taught us how to run away from the Big 5. Whether we had to climb a tree, whether we had to run away in a zigzag pattern from the elephants because elephants cannot see. You will never believe this. If we saw a lion, what we had to do was turn around, face the lion, stare him down until he turned around and walked away. Are you serious? So on to my second favorite country that I have visited. This country is the country of Vietnam. It is actually called the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, which is a little bit crazy because in Ho Chi Minh City, you have the Socialist Society, ex-communist area, and then you also have this sort of Champs-Elysees shopping district with all of the major brands. Doesn't even make sense, but it's amazing to see. I originally tried to visit Vietnam in the early 90s when I was traveling with my Australian friends, and I was a lot younger than I am now. But my Aussie friends said it probably wasn't a good idea to travel at that time to Vietnam, so I decided to wait until just a few years ago. I was there in the past 4 or 5 years, and it was absolutely spectacular. I did a month and a half in Southeast Asia between Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. I didn't know anything about Vietnam at the time. I wish I would have spent more time there. I was just there a week between Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, or Old Saigon, and the Mekong Delta. I really wish of all the places that I went in Southeast Asia that I could go back to Vietnam. I would love to spend 2 or 3 weeks in that country alone. So as soon as you arrive in Vietnam, the first thing you have to try is the Vietnamese coffee. It will definitely get your motor running. My favorite thing about Vietnam were the people. There are actually 54 recognized ethnic tribes in Vietnam, and everyone was fantastic. They had a smile on their face, they were welcoming, open-armed, they shared their food, they shared their ideas, they wanted to get to know you, they wanted to know more about where you were from and what was going on. So kind, so generous, so friendly. In addition, it was crazy for me because I'm really tall, and so when I go to a country that the people in general are much shorter than me, I turn into a tourist attraction myself. And it was funny, there would be little old ladies who would get out their phone and they would sneak up next to me and pretend that they were taking a picture of a site, but what they were doing was actually taking a picture of themselves in comparison to me, who is 5'11". I ended up turning around, smiling, giving a thumbs up, saying, "Hey, what's up?" Anyway, they loved it. So I didn't have a lot of time to spend in Vietnam, just a week as I mentioned before. I had the opportunity to go into the Mekong Delta and spend time with the family. We actually took one of the boats out there, spent the night with the family. I had the treat of helping one of these little girls who was living in the house. I helped her with her English class. She was working on a computer, probably circa 1980. She sat on my lap and I helped her with the words in English. It was a lot of fun and a great experience to see how families live in the middle of the Mekong. So my third and final favorite country is Nepal. I was just in Nepal not too long ago. I had the opportunity to go to Kathmandu. I went to Chitwan, I went to Pokhara, and I actually trekked the Annapurna Ranges for 4 days. An interesting tidbit about Nepal is they have 10 of the highest mountains in the entire world, including Everest. If you think Everest is the only place to hike in Nepal, you are mistaken. There are plenty of other places to trek and to hike. I actually went from Pokhara, hiked the Annapurna Ranges, which are to the east of Everest, and I spent 4 days in the mountains trekking. I had a Sherpa, thank goodness. Perhaps when I was 20, I didn't need a Sherpa, but when I'm 45 plus, I definitely want a Sherpa. We were allowed to bring 25 pounds. I carried my day pack, my Sherpa carried my 25 pounds, and we trekked every day 12 to 14 hours a day. We stayed in tea houses in the evening. We'd get in about dark and then have a nice dinner. The next morning we would get up at 5 a.m., see the sunrise, which was gorgeous over the mountains, cool and fresh, have our breakfast, have our coffee, and take off trekking again. One day of this trek, I actually booked 35,000 vertical steps. And when I say vertical, I mean vertical. We're talking 18 to 24 inches per step up, and it was straight up the ranges. Crazy, crazy, but one of the best things that I've ever done. I have one tip for you when you go to Nepal. While you're there, you are going to see millions and millions and millions of singing bowls. My recommendation is do not buy a singing bowl the first day you're in Kathmandu. It is overwhelming. There are lots of people hawking their wares. It's hard to say no when you're just starting your trek. But I promise, what you want to do is you want to find the right singing bowl that is handmade. You want to have the right tune, the right sound, and when you find that right one, I bet I looked at probably 250 singing bowls over the time I was there before I actually purchased the one I purchased. This is the one I got. So again, don't buy a singing bowl on day one, and don't buy a machine-made singing bowl. It's not worth it. Nepal is actually primarily Hindu, very kind people. I see a pattern here. For me, the common theme when I travel is how the people are in the country that I'm visiting. There are amazing sights throughout the world, but it's actually the people you meet that make the difference. That's why Botswana, Vietnam, and Nepal make my top 3 list of my favorite countries that I have visited. Thanks so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you soon. Please subscribe in the link below, and see you on the trail. Mwah!